Dear students, greetings for the day. Today we will study seams and seam finishes part 1. Objectives: to know about the importance of seams and seam finishes in a garment. To gain knowledge on various factors that need to be considered for the choice of seams in different garments. To familiarize with the method of making different seams. A seam is a method of joining two or more pieces of materials together by a row of stitching. The purpose of most of these seams is purely functional and can be called as constructional seams. Seams should be as flat as possible and unseen, except those that are used for decorative purposes for garment design and line. Seams can be classified into flat seams and ridge seams. Plain seam and flat fell seam are examples of flat seams. Ridge seams include the French seam. Seams may also be divided into conspicuous and inconspicuous seams. Inconspicuous seams when finished will not have stitches seen on the right side of the garment, example are plain and French. Conspicuous seams are those that have stitches seen on the right side of the garment like run and fell seam, lapped seam, top stitched seam, etc. The type of seam to be used on a garment will depend on various factors. They are: 1. Texture and durability of the fabric. When working with a heavy fabric, one should avoid bulky seams like French seam. 2. Design and use of the garment. When making a boy's sports shirt, a strong seam like flat fell seam should be used. 3. Shape of the seam. Seams may be straight or curved. Straight seams may be in vertical, horizontal or slanting direction on the dress. When joining curved edges, plain seam will give a better finish than French. 4. Location of the seam in the garment. Seams in parts of the garment which may get stretched during body movement will have to be made more durable than others. 5. Current fashion. The trend that is present at that time of the season has to be considered while selecting the seams. 1.0 Types of seams. 1.1 Plain seam, which is also termed as master seam, is the most widely used seam in garment making. Plain seam is the easiest way of making seams and is used on all types of fabrics except on very transparent types. It is pliable and inconspicuous and is suitable for firm fabrics that do not travel and will not be subjected to hard and frequent laundering. Plain seam can also be successfully employed for stitching curved seams. This is used for side seams, underarm seams and armhole seams. 1.2 straight seam. To make a plain seam, place the two fabric pieces together with their right sides facing each other, matching the seam line and the notches made if any. Place the pins right angles to seam line and put a row of basting stitches along the seam line. The pins are later removed and the permanent machine stitches are made exactly on the seam line. 1.3 curved plain seam. To stitch a smooth, curved seam, reduce the stitch length hand stitch along the curved seam line. For inward or concave curve, clip the seam allowances so that the seam lies flat when pressed open. For outward or convex curves, cut wedge-shaped notches from the seam allowances to give a flat edge when the seam is pressed open. When a concave edge is to be stitched with a convex edge as in princess line, stay stitch both the curves and clip the inward curves at even intervals. .4 cornered seam. To strengthen seams at corner, reduce the stitch length. Stitch to the corner, pivoting the needle point in the corners. Turn the fabric and continue to stitch with small stitch length. Reinforce the seam till 2.5 cm each side of the corner to prevent from fraying after it is trimmed at the corner, and turn the right side out. At pointed outward corners, for example collar point, take 1 or 2 diagonal stitches across the point instead of stitching right up to the point. Trim the corner diagonally to reduce bulk before turning inside out. For inward corner, clip almost to the stitch line to ensure smooth corner when they are turned outside right. To join an inward corner to an outward corner, for example in a yoke, first reinforce the inward corner with small stitches and clip just to the stitching line. Pin the two sections together along one edge with the clipped section on top, and stitch the corner. Leave the needle in the fabric and raise the presser foot. Pivot by turning the fabric around the needle, then spread the clipped edges apart to match the next edge. .5 flat felt seam. This type of seam is mostly used on men's sports shirts, work clothes and children's clothes, pajamas and mostly jeans. The right side of the seam will show 2 rows of stitching and wrong side will show only 1 row of stitching. This is also suitable for undergarments, which come in direct contact with the skin, as well as reversible garments. While making the seam, a plain seam should be made first by leaving 1 cm seam allowance. After pressing the seam to one side, trim the underneath seam edge, turn a parage over the trimmed edge encasing it, and stitch close to the folded edge using machine or hem stitches. Precaution needs to be taken to turn the edges onto the side of relevance, such as the blouse turns over the sleeve at the armhole, the back turns over the front at the shoulder, and the yoke turns over the blouse at the yoke. When it is finished by hemming, it is referred as hemmed fell seam. 1.6 French seam. This is a ridge seam and is used on transparent and lightweight fabrics, especially on baby clothes and delicate blouses. It is a neat and durable finish as the raw edges are completely concealed. It is suitable for thin fabrics only, as this adds little bulk to the seam. Thus it is suitable on sheer and fraying fabrics like voile, georgette etc., as it prevents the raw edges from fraying and also presents neat enclosed edge. .7 Counter seam. This is also a durable, flat seam used for very thick materials such as menswear and reversible garments. This is mainly employed for reducing the thickness at the seam level. This can be made by one of the two methods. In one method, turn down a little on wrong side of one piece of fabric and on right side of the other piece and iron them firmly. Keep wrong side of the first piece of fabric on the right side of the second piece along the edges, maintaining the seam allowances, and tack it in position. Machine stitch along the folded edges. This is called 3-layered counter seam. In the second method, turn down 0.5 centimeters on the wrong side of one piece of fabric and on right side of the other and iron them firmly. Keep wrong side of the first piece on the right side of the second piece and slip the turned down edges under each other. Pin it in position, tack it and machine stitch along the folded edges from the right and wrong sides. This is called 4-layered counter seam. .8 Decorative seams. This category includes the seam that along with seaming also serve the purpose of decoration. These are visible on right side of the garment to emphasize the design details. These seams can be done with matching or contrasting colored threads according to the purpose for which these are required. .9 Top stitched seams. This is a seam that adds strength and is flat and decorative. It is used to emphasize design details or to keep seam and seam edges flat. It is a simple open seam with the underturnings top stitched. With right sides together, stitch a plain seam and press it open on the wrong side. If the fabric frays, neaten the turnings before top stitching. From the right side, top stitch close to the seam on each side. This double seam is referred as double top stitching. If the seam allowance is pressed to one side and top stitched closer to the seam through all layers, it is called single top stitching. It produces a cord-like effect in woolen fabrics. It is used with top stitching closer to the seam line on thin fabrics in which the seams are exposed to higher strain such as slips, children's clothes and sports garments. 1.10 Piped or corded seam. When a cord is enclosed in between the strip, it is termed as corded seam. This seam is very often used at the waistline and yoke line of dresses. A bias strip of contrasting color is used as an extra piece in between the plain seam. On the right side, the bias piece is seen extended between the two pieces of material. It is customary to choose the cord according to the weight of the fabric, or fine cord for cotton and light linen fabrics and a heavier cord for thick fabrics.